New tech, old values, European Commission's fine on Google. www.thehindu.com New tech, old values, European Commission's fine on Google. Yesterday, 11:01 p.m. long arm of the European Commission has once again struck the technology world with the imposition of a 2.42 crore euros, $2.7 crore fine on Google for the company's abuse of its market position. The Commission found that Google abused its dominance in the Internet search market to give itself an unfair advantage in another market, comparison shopping services. Google's comparison shopping service disadvantaged competitors by placing them lower in its search results, systematically giving Google's own services higher placement and greater visibility, leading to more clicks. Google, which is required to pay the fine within 90 days, may appeal the decision. While the fine itself is unlikely to pose financial problems for Google, whose parent company, Alphabet, posted a profit of over $55 crore in 2016, the impact on how Google does business is likely to be significant, the Commission has said, and rightly, that it would leave it to Google to remedy the situation. The European Union's Competition Commissioner, Margrethe Vestager, also said the ruling could guide future decisions on complaints around Google favoring its own products and services via its search engine. The verdict is the latest in a long list of actions the EU has taken against tech companies from across the Atlantic. From a fine earlier on Microsoft for bundling its browser and operating system together, to a record 13 crore euros tax bill slapped on Apple last year for back taxes owed to Ireland, Brussels has signaled in no uncertain terms that it is determined to take on large tech companies, some of which have become gargantuan transnational entities, in the interest of its citizens. Also read Google's antitrust fine in Europe, the denouement of a David versus Goliath. The old idea that market power cannot be used to stymie competition, a result of which is a lowering of consumer choice and welfare, is good even when the market is new and changing rapidly, as happens at the technological frontier. Attempts to cast Google's run-in with the Commission as a game of transatlantic dominance have quietened down, partly reflecting the wariness with which the current White House views tech giants, many of whom spoke vociferously against Donald Trump's travel ban, in contrast to criticism from the U.S. government when the Google complaint was first lodged, and for the Apple tax bill of 2016, the White House refrained from getting involved after the EU fined Google. The fault lines between tech giants, which often act as supranational entities, and national and multinational governmental bodies, are changing fast as the relationship between citizens, their governments, media and technology is transformed. In the years to come we can expect new lines to be drawn as technological frontiers are crossed. While technology is constantly changing, valuing choice, competition and consumer welfare never gets outdated or obsolete. Comments. Visit website. Pay to publish, making paid news an electoral offense. www.thehindu.com Pay to publish, making paid news an electoral offense. Yesterday, 10:57 p.m. Election Commission's order disqualifying Madhya Pradesh Minister Narottam Mishra for 3 years is an important step in curbing paid news in the electoral arena. It is not the first such order. An Uttar Pradesh MLA, Umlesh Yadav, was disqualified in 2011 on the same ground of suppressing expenditure incurred in the publication of paid news. The AK has called paid news, a term that refers to propaganda in favor of a candidate masquerading as news reports or articles, a grave electoral malpractice on the part of candidates to circumvent expenditure limits. In a typical inquiry into the paid news phenomenon, the newspaper or publication concerned denies that it was paid for publishing the material and insists that it was part of its normal election coverage. The candidate denies authorizing the publication and takes the plea that he or she could not possibly account for something that was not paid for. Mr. Mishra was no exception. He, in fact, argued that his rivals could be behind the 42 reports that the EC's National Level Committee on Paid News found to be nothing but election advertisements, without any disclaimer. However, the AIC did not buy his arguments, mainly because it was difficult to believe that he had not seen reports that appeared in his Desha constituency during the campaign for the 2008 assembly elections, often with his picture and the Bharatiya Janata Party's symbol. Many of these reports carried identical words, and in some there was a direct appeal for votes on his behalf. Paid news is not an electoral offense yet, but there is a case to make it one. The AIC has recommended to the government that the Representation of the People Act, 1951, be amended to make the publishing, or abetting the publishing, of paid news to further a candidate's prospects or prejudicially affect another's an electoral offence. Until this is done, contestants who use paid news can only be hauled up for failing to include the expenses involved in their campaign accounts. In Mr. Mishra's case, the AIC has taken the view that even if it were true that he made no payment, he ought to have included a notional amount in his accounts. Also, candidates cannot simply claim that these reports were not authorized by them. As long as the intention to boost someone's prospects was clear and there was no objection from the candidate, the AIC can rule that there was implied authorization. Mr. Mishra's case pertains to the 2008 election, and by the time the Commission has given its verdict, he is into his next term, having been re-elected in 2013. It is difficult not to notice that the enormous delay in adjudicating such questions is often created by candidates approaching the courts to stall inquiries. A legal framework in which electoral issues are expeditiously adjudicate must also be put in place if election law is to be enforced in both letter and spirit. Comments. Visit website.